want to dive back into our discussion about how we can actually influence our own bodies and our health and our optimal living. It's not just up to somebody else, it's really up to us. And so with that, I'd like to welcome our first presenter of the afternoon. And it's my pleasure to do so because Nicci Kobritz is a veteran of this series, having participated 2 years ago in July of 2016 in the forum that the Downtown Sarasota Association hosted on brain health. And Nicci is president of the Center for Brain Health and founder and president of Youthful Aging Home Health. She's a geriatric specialist and nurse practitioner, has more than 3 decades of experience in developing and managing high-quality healthcare services. In the state of Maine, Nicci founded the Expanded Child Health Services, a rural pediatric clinic selected by the Academy of Pediatrics as a national model. Then she developed a state model for hospital-based child neglect programs for the Maine Medical Association and served in Maine Governor John McKernan's cabinet. In 2011, she formed a partnership with the internationally known Roskamp Institute to create and operate Sci-Brain, a research-driven organization dedicated to reducing people's risk for Alzheimer's disease. In 2016, she established the new entity, Center for Brain Health, to expand on those possibilities. Our next speaker's passion is to bridge the gap between science, research, and what you, as members of the community, need to know. Here today to share with us the latest, greatest brain science, revealing the potential to take this lifestyle intervention to the next level. Please join me in welcoming a champion of brain health, Nicci Kobritz.
My marketing person, definitely. So, the brain really loved this lunch, I'll tell you. So you want to know about brain health. Well, I'm often asked the question, how do we define brain health? Really, what is it? So we at the center define brain health as, slides going here, neurogenesis, optimizing neurogenesis, brain reserve, and the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the engine of the cell, and it is what powers every cell in our body and provides energy for our cells to function. Neurogenesis is the ability of the brain to regenerate itself. We've long known that the brain is plastic, that it can regenerate new neurons and reorganize itself under the right conditions. Brain reserve is the ability of the brain to expand and strengthen connections between neurons. And when we're able to do that, then we're able to strengthen our brain reserve. And what happens with brain reserve is when we're going about our day doing what we normally do and we're not optimizing our brain health, our neurogenesis and brain reserve and the mitochondria, then generally we're retreading the same old pathways. But what happens when we're building brain reserve is that we are strengthening, let's go back here, we are strengthening other pathways so that when we do have some amyloid, beta amyloid disposition, TIA, or any insults to the brain, then we have these other pathways that can kick in and compensate for those neuronal losses. So building brain reserve obviously depends a lot on neurogenesis and for sure the mitochondria. So how do we know that? When we bring that all together, how do we know when we've optimized our brain health? We as a center will often look at the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the memory center of the brain. It's that little horseshoe that you see, picture that you see. That is the hippocampus. And it has greater consolidation of neurons in the hippocampus. So we'll do a neuroquant imaging and we'll look at hippocampal volume, and that gives us a good indication of how well we're succeeding with improving our brain health for our individual clients. So how do we know, how do we get to optimizing our brain health? Utilizing lifestyle interventions therapeutically. Exercise, diet, which we're going to talk a little bit about. Stress, sleep, we've heard a lot about sleep. And mental stimulation. And managing those medical conditions that we know compromise the integrity of the brain. So this is the formula for optimizing brain health. So how do we know that this works? Finger study, the famous, infamous finger study, which is a first longitudinal study that brought together these lifestyle interventions. Study was done out of Copenhagen University. They took 1,700 individuals who were at risk for Alzheimer's disease, and they applied that formula. And what they found, their 2-year progress report reported out 25% improvement in memory, thinking, and problem solving, 83% improvement in executive function, organizing, and regulating thought process, 150% higher processing speed, responding to new information. Couldn't tell you exactly why this was all happening, but the study is a 7-year longitudinal study, and we're now waiting to see the final analysis of that report. If we take a look at the statistics for Alzheimer's disease, we see approximately 5.7 million people in the U.S. has Alzheimer's disease, some 44 million people worldwide. 96% of individuals with Alzheimer's disease are over the age of 65. It's the 6th leading cause of death, but it's the #1 fear that we all have. Cognitive changes we know now occur in the mid to late 40s, and we're not just talking about the premature Alzheimer's disease folks, the genetic predisposition for AD, but people who have symptoms that are similar to age-related findings of age-related Alzheimer's disease. The ApoE4, if you have that is the highest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is if you have the genetic predisposition for AD, the ApoE4. If you have one of the alleles, you have a 30% chance of getting Alzheimer's disease. If you have 2 of the alleles, you have over 50% chance of getting Alzheimer's. We have, and obviously we're not screening for the genetic predisposition, the ApoE. So this is literally a time bomb out there for many people who may have this genetic predisposition and they don't know it. The one statistic, however, that should really alarm you the most is the fact that after billions of dollars being spent on Alzheimer's disease research, the Alzheimer's Association bleakly reported out that 99.6% of those clinical trials have failed. The 0.4% has given us the Menda and Aricept, and we know that those drugs temporarily slow down the decline, and they certainly don't stop it. So when we take a look at Alzheimer's research, we're really seeing research going down 2 paths. One is a monotherapeutic path, where they're looking for that magic drug, that cocktail that's going to remove the beta amyloid and cure Alzheimer's disease. The other path is the multi-therapeutic path, where we're looking at lifestyle interventions. And they're having a lot of success, not just with the finger study, but that certainly prompted NIH to be spending a lot more money looking more at lifestyles. The drug trials, Pfizer, just to give you an indication of where some of these drug companies are, Pfizer just ended their research. These are major drug companies. Biogen, Merck, 3rd phase clinical trial reporting out, not so much. Eli Lilly terminated their 3rd phase trials. AstraZeneca just recently ended its 2nd late phase clinical trials. And currently there are some 80 therapeutic drug trials in phase 2 and 3 that are now ongoing. Thank you. So, as we talk about the monotherapeutic drugs, which seems to be experiencing some results, there's a new protocol that's out, there's new research out that we're watching very carefully, and it's very exciting. And it's called the RECODE protocol. And it is showing a reversal of cognitive decline. This research is a culmination of 30 years of research out of UCLA and Buck Institute. And what RECODE is looking at very carefully is first let me mention before I get into that. What they did is they took approximately, in their proof of concept phase, they took 100 individuals who were diagnosed with premature Alzheimer's, the genetic predisposition for Alzheimer's, mild cognitive impairment, and newly diagnosed Alzheimer's patients. And they demonstrated an 80 to 90% reversal rate in cognitive decline. And that's in the proof of concept. Their preclinical trial now has over 1,000 patients who are beginning to experience similar results. Now, in the proof of concept, they found that those reversal of symptoms held 4 and 5 years out. Now we have Cleveland Clinic and Institute in Seattle who are this year conducting clinical trials on the RECODE protocol. Next year they're going to be looking at clinicals in Europe and also Australia. So this is a protocol research that we're following very carefully, but this is not a cure. I want to emphasize this is not a cure. The research is very clear to emphasize it's not a cure. As long as people are staying on the formula, on the protocol, they're experiencing reversal of symptoms. Now, the basis behind the RECODE protocol is they're looking at the source of what is generating the beta amyloid. And what they're looking at is systemic inflammation. They're looking at correcting metabolic nutritional deficiencies and eliminating toxins and heavy metals from the brain. It's a highly customized research project, meaning that it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's customized given the individual need. Alzheimer's, this just came out of NIH last month. Alzheimer's is now rethinking the one-size-fits-all approach. They're now looking at recommendations guiding future research to be focusing on Alzheimer's disease, dementia, the gut-brain connection. We know that the brain and the gut is connected. Mind, diet, neurotoxins, heavy metals, and precision medicine. So it's a very exciting time right now in the world of Alzheimer's disease research as we begin to take a look at taking lifestyle interventions to yet another level. So just to quickly go over some pointers for you on protecting the brain. We focus on increasing antioxidant levels, we focus on eliminating toxic foods, and of course, supporting the mitochondria. In our newsletter, Dr. Cantero has written an article on the mitochondria, so you want to be sure and read it, so I won't have to get into more details on that. So, silent inflammation, we're all familiar with acute inflammation. You get a temperature, you go to the doctor, you get some medication, and the inflammation subsides. Silent inflammation operates below the level of pain, and it affects the vascular system, obviously, but it affects all body systems, silent inflammation. So, what causes this? Let's take a look. It starts with having triggers, and here we show, obviously, the environment, gluten, stress, poor diet. Other triggers trigger elements which then mix oxygen and then compromise the integrity of the membrane of the neuron and releases free radicals. Antioxidants render free radicals non-toxic. Free radicals are toxic to the brain. So, Mediterranean diet, which is obviously one thing that we promote at Center for Brain Health because of its high polyphenols and flavonoids. We know that as a result of genetics and molecular biology, that there is this class of chemicals, of antioxidants that are very much embedded within fruits and vegetables. And that's why these foods are very important. At our table, we've got a list of these foods for you so that you can have your own copies to take home with you. Fatty acids are also very important, omega-3s and omega-6s. These are considered essential nutrients, essential because the body does not produce them. You have to get them from your diet. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of sources of omega-3s and omega-6s. Particularly, I want to focus for a moment on omega-3s, DHA and EPA fats. We know that the brain needs fat. The brain is 60% fat, and it's DHA fat. So the omega-3s are particularly important. And again, we have those listed foods for you at our desk. Olive oil, it is the mainstay of the Mediterranean diet. It is one of the most powerful antioxidants. It lowers the risk of stroke, protects against heart disease, and is very good for cooking. So olive oil should be your mainstay. Glutathione. Glutathione is produced by the body. It actually is the body's own internal anti-inflammatory system, but it must be nurtured. And these are foods that are very high in glutathione, so you want to be sure and include these in your diet. Homocysteine level is very interesting. Homocysteine level is an amino acid. It's a byproduct of animal protein, and it requires B12, B6, and folate in order to methylate homocysteine. It needs to be recycled and absorbed, and if you are deficient in those nutrients, homocysteine levels go up, and they become very toxic to the brain, and also the vascular system, and places you at greater risk for stroke. So I'm very pleased to be seeing so many more physicians who are now screening for homocysteine level. So if you haven't had it done, you should. The mitochondria, obviously, we talked about a little bit about the mitochondria, is so important as the energy of the cell, as a source of energy for your neurons and cells. The mitochondria, obviously, the cells have receptors, and they absorb nutrients and metabolites and convert it with oxygen and create this energy. And your cells simply don't function unless the mitochondria is functioning. So it's very important to be looking at supporting the mitochondria. Toxic foods, if you do nothing more than eliminate toxic foods from your diet, sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and trans fats, you have gone a long way to improving your brain health. Sugar is, I know we've learned a lot about sugar already with our previous lectures, but it is a neurotoxin, and it does interrupt connections between neurons. So eliminating sugar, reducing your sugar consumption is very important. High fructose corn syrup is in a lot of our foods, and it also interrupts with neuronal pathways, with communication, and diminishes the impact of the mitochondria. So it's very important to read labels. We're seeing less and less high fructose corn syrup in our diets, but pay attention to that. Trans fats, wow, this is a real bad one. In fact, it has now been declared by the ADA, the American Academy of Science, I'm trying to think, I missed the other, that there is no safe level of consumption for trans fats. More and more food companies are eliminating trans fats from the diet, from foods, so we should be seeing less and less of it in our food product, but it's still out there, and it does reduce energy production, obviously, inflammation of the brain, and interrupts communication. So trans fats should be something that you for sure keep out of your diet. Some of the basic vitamins and minerals I wanted to just mention. Obviously, it's important to have your nutritional status evaluated. We recommend that people get supplements, get their nutrients from their diet, but we do have nutritional deficiencies. It does exist, and it's good to have a good comprehensive evaluation and know where your deficiencies are. We see so many patients who come in with bags and bags of supplements, and so some of the basics, a multivitamin is good, vitamin D, calcium and magnesium, omega-3s of course, and a good B complex with folate. So our motto is, if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. And while you're not doing it, you can drink plenty of red wine.